I think a new team has arrived in the AFC West, and their name is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it!
Herbert fires open, making the grab. Mike Williams down the sideline. On the 17-yard line, look out again. Carr, intercepted.
Welcome back to the Shock Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Lawrence, with my co-host, Zach Alford. Zach, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, going through some just personal stuff, but happy that the Chargers are officially in the playoffs for the first time in Justin Herbert's career, first time in Brandon Staley's head coaching career. Very, very excited. I think there's only two people on this team right now on the Chargers that have playoff experience in Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa returned to practice, so I'm stoked. We're going to get some meaningful football here in January, and I couldn't be more excited for it.
It's the first time the Chargers have made the playoffs since 2018, and it's the earliest that they've made the playoffs since their 14-2 season back in 2009, 2010. So being able to go and clinch is huge, but being able to clinch with this remaining two games is even bigger, because I think it gives you an opportunity to kind of play with your roster a little bit and figure some things out. One of the things I actually wanted to talk about, so we're going to be getting Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa's back at practice, which is huge. Probably putting him on a snap count, which is probably the right way to kind of bring him in. But there's also an opportunity where we may be getting Rashawn Slater back. And that makes me wonder, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on this, at potentially sitting Matt Filer, moving Storm Norton out the left tackle, moving Jamari Sawyer to left guard, because it does a couple things. One, Matt Filer gets him a little more healthy. He's not on the injury report or anything like that, but he has not played well, and it's to keep him fresh. But if we do bring back Rashawn Slater, what are your thoughts about moving Sawyer back to guard during the playoffs, see how he plays over these next two games, and potentially keeping your left guard fresh, putting some more players on more of a snap count as a roster as a whole? But the one I'm keying in on is, I feel like with how bad Matt Filer has played, really inconsistent throughout the whole season, one of the worst graded offensive guards in the NFL right now, I might be willing to see how Sawyer plays at left guard over these next two games.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's a position where it's not just one guy, right? Matt Filer's struggles are mostly on him, but the injuries to his center Corey Linsley and Will Clapp back and forth, having Rashawn Slater at the beginning of the year, having now, like that, it's all about chemistry up front. And so I like the idea, because I think Sawyer is a better player right now. But you went out and got Matt Filer for a reason. He's a veteran. He's been through it before, been through the ringer, knows what it takes to play football in January when it's cold, when it means something. So I'm not opposed to it in the regular season for these last two games that really don't much matter. We're really just jockeying for starting position. But honestly, every team in the AFC is so good, I don't really think you can really play matchups at this point. I think we're happy to be here, and we want more. So I don't know. That's a tough one, because I think you want to start building chemistry, but you also want to keep people fresh. So it's a tough type of, I wouldn't say predicament, but it's a weird spot to be in this late in the year when you're trying to build chemistry for that unit who hasn't been at full strength all year. And the unit that is your best unit right now, is probably not you have guys like Sawyer who are playing left tackle where that's not really his natural position. Obviously, you want Rashawn Slater back. We still haven't. He's still on IR. We don't really have a good feel for when he is going to come back. But I do like the idea of resting Sawyer or resting Filer, getting Sawyer some looks at guard, as long as Storm Norton can hold his own, because Herbert's been taking a lot of hits. I don't think we could ask to him to do much more than he's doing right now, which is performing at nothing less than an MVP caliber type of level. He's really putting this team on his back. So I don't know if you could ask much more of Justin Herbert. But if Storm wants to come in and play good football, I'm all for it. But I think you got to be really, really. I don't know. I think
you got to be hesitant, right? You got to protect your quarterback, because the worst possible thing that could happen is Justin Herbert getting injured.
Right.
But in addition to that, I'm looking at getting rotations at every position group. So one of those players being JT Woods, right? JT Woods hasn't played like 30 snaps all season. Derwin James has a concussion. He was limited on Thursday, and I do want to get into the Colts game. I just kind of want to talk about this because I think it's important, knowing that these next two games are not important. We're in the playoffs regardless, and whether we're a 5th seed or whether we're the 7th seed, we're in the playoffs regardless. So it doesn't really matter all that much. And I'm looking at getting guys game reps because, one, they may be called upon, right? JT Woods hasn't played almost all season. I think he's going to have an opportunity to potentially play if Derwin James has not cleared concussion protocols. He was a limited participant at practice on Thursday. I'm looking at Joey Bosa getting some snaps, but being on a snap count, getting him back in the rhythm. I'm also looking for guys like Austin Eckler to take less hits. So potentially getting our rookie 4th round draft pick some snaps. I'm looking at just across the board, keeping guys fresh, not taking your foot off the gas necessarily. And I think that we have a lot of work to do over these next 2 games because there's a lot of things still out of sync. The offensive line's been given a bunch of pressures. The play calling has still been an issue. But at the same time, now that we're getting guys back healthy, let's keep them healthy. Let's let some of our backups get some snaps. Some real game experience, which could become important when playoffs happen and then the injuries occur there. Because if Derwin James goes down, right, we have to be able to count on JT Woods to play something. We have to. There's just a lot of guys. We lose Austin Eckler, that would be such a huge blow to the Chargers.
Right. Yeah. It'll be interesting because I hear you. I think you make a good point. You want to be as fresh as possible, but you also don't want to just put bodies out there just to have them, because you want, at the end of the perfect world, we win these 2 games. We're on a 5-game winning streak. We go in red hot, one of the hottest teams in the AFC, into the playoffs. Like, that's what we want. Now, I hear you. You don't want to all of those guys playing 40 plus snaps in an overtime game. Like, that's something we don't want. So maybe then I'm okay with switching here and then, as long as we are competitive in the game itself. It starts Sunday, and you also need to finish with your division rival in the Broncos, who played us really well earlier in the season. Obviously, they're a lot more banged up now. No, don't have a franchise quarterback at their disposal. So as long as we can be competitive, I'm all right with giving guys breaks. But as soon as we get, if it's a 2-score deficit, I'm going back full strength to build that momentum with the guys who are going to play. Now, I think you make some good points. I want to be fresh. I just don't think Staley is going to see it like that. I think he's going to want, and I don't think you're going to get all of those rotations all at the same time. Maybe a game here, maybe a quarter here, but not all at the same time, if that makes sense.
Well, playoffs is going to be a challenge for the Chargers because
Absolutely.
they do hold the 6th seed. And if you look at places where they potentially be playing in January, you're looking at Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Baltimore, all cold places to play. And the Chargers being a warm weather team, and the only other teams really in the hunt, you got Jacksonville, that's a warm weather area. Miami, that's warm weather. The Patriots and the Jets have a chance, as well as the Steelers. But overall, wherever we play, it's going to be cold in January.
Buffalo, especially because I think that their airport is down right now, so it would be an extra long trip anyway.
The
Because we'd
whole
have to fly
Northeast
somewhere
is
else and then bus up or something. I don't know how they'd figure that one out, but last time I tried to fly over the weekend, and I'm pretty sure as of right now that the Buffalo airport is completely locked down.
the whole Northeast is all locked down. That entire place has been beat up with storms.
It's cold,
but
let's bring the
no place gets snow like Buffalo.
No, but let's bring some tropical storms. I'm ready for it. It's Charger season now, and I'm so excited. Should we talk about this Colts game a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about this Colts game. I wouldn't say it was a complete game overall, but I mean, the Chargers keeping the Colts down to 3 points was huge. They're still struggling in the red zone, which I think is the biggest issue with the Chargers right now. Special teams unit is on point. Justin Herbert didn't throw a touchdown again. Had the one interception, potentially could have had two, took 4 sacks, but overall 24 of 31 for 235 yards. They were efficient on offense. They were able to move the ball. They just couldn't score when they were getting into the red zone, which has been plaguing them week in and week out.
Now, yeah, talking about the red zone, I will say one thing. When we're in that like gray area, like that the 40 to 20, very, very bad. But once you get into that 20-yard, 10-yard zone, the last 3 games or the last 2 games against the Titans, we got down there twice. We ran 8 rushing plays. We scored twice. This time we got into within the 10-yard line once. We ran 4 rushing plays. We scored. Our run game is not very good, but down in the red zone, when you have 10 yards to gain or a touchdown, like it's a touchdown or a field goal down there, running the ball is so important. And the Chargers have been able to figure it out. I don't know why, but they've won 12 plays, all rushing plays within 10 yards and goal to go, and they've scored. So maybe that's something that we can
lean on,
build up. It also, I think it's going to help having a 6-7 Parham up and healthy in that red zone with a full Keenan Allen, with a healthy Mike Williams. Those guys are red zone threats, which we haven't really been using because we found this. It's almost as if teams aren't even expecting it because we are so bad at running the football everywhere else on the field. But for whatever reason, these last 3 trips into the 10-yard line, we've been able to run the ball effectively. So hopefully that's something that we can continue into the playoffs, because you're going to need touchdowns in the playoffs. You can't settle for field goals trying to beat teams like the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs. It's not going to happen.
It's just sad because we only scored 20 points. How many times did we get in the red zone? Did you see?
4 times. 4 times we scored twice.
And then, like you said, leaning on the run game in that part of the field has been super efficient. Justin Herbert's been protecting the ball for the most part in that area of the season, minus the Chiefs game that was returned for a touchdown that ultimately led to their loss. But I don't think we're having problems moving the ball. Keenan Allen was on fire. His best game of the season, 11 receptions, 104 yards, 11 on 14 targets. So he was a target monster. Okay. No other player had over 5 targets that game. And Allen was just able to find the weak spots in between the zones. Mike Williams has been still a really good deep threat, really good on the hitches, the comeback routes, stuff like that. But it was nice seeing Keenan Allen just have the game of his season in that game. I want to see it against better teams, though.
Yeah.
Got to see it against better teams.
Yeah, I think it'll come, though. 17 first downs, 8 for 18 on third down efficiency. We converted our only 4th down attempt. And then the way we're picking up those first downs, I said 17 first downs, 10 of them were through the air, 7 of them were on the ground. And so, yeah, maybe we're not having the most efficient run games on a run per carry basis, but we're efficient in the red zone. And when we need a couple yards, we're getting it. So you got to look at the positives here. And I think those are all positives that you can build on, especially with this offensive line who's struggling as of late.
Something else that was kind of interesting that I saw. So Keenan Allen played out wide almost as much as he played out in the slot. 17 snaps from the slot, 15 from out wide. So they're moving him around quite a bit. A lot of it's going to be in motion. They like to motion Keenan Allen quite a bit, but he's been super, super effective overall wherever he's been lining up in that game. Like I said, though, I need to see it against better teams. We're not going to get it these next 2 weeks. Maybe Denver because their defense is so strong, but the Chargers got to find a way to put up more than 20 points against a Colts team that is really struggling across the roster. And I memean, they're going to go and play the Rams. The Rams were a Super Bowl caliber team last season. Things haven't gone the way this year. I need to see more. Defensively, Drew Tranquill had 11 tackles. He had a sack. He's been playing on fire. I'm really nervous that we're not going to be able to keep him in the offseason.
He's coming back. Don't put that out. He's coming back. If he's not coming back, we're going to get Kaiser White. It's happening. We need. Yeah, I love Kenneth Murray, but he is not the caliber of player that Drew Tranquill is. Drew Tranquill is playing at an all-pro level. You can't turn the strength of your team into a weakness. You got to go out and sign that guy. Whatever he needs, whatever it takes, bring him back because he's been a very, very important piece of this dominant defense that we've seen these last 3 weeks.
He just needs to limit the missed tackles.
Sure.
That's his biggest thing right now. He's got 22 missed tackles on the season, but he's been such an important role, especially since he started wearing the green dot on defense, been calling the plays. He's playing all over the field. But I mean, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games with at least 2 missed tackles this season. He's in position. He just seems to just miss it a little too often. But he's been really, really good in coverage as well. He's allowed 38 receptions for 48 yards, but on those 38 receptions, 335 total yards given up. So he's, for the most part, is keeping everything in front of him. I really like Drew Tranquill. I really hope we're able to bring him back this season.
Well, and you just mentioned a little bit about his versatility. He's also third on the team with in sacks. So he can rush the passer. He can stop the run. He's our leading tackler right now, and he's our best coverage linebacker. Like that.
Well, he does so much.
He does it all, and maybe that's part of the reason that now you're putting the green dot on him halfway through the season or early on in the season, but he wasn't calling plays in through training camp. So there's a lot. He's a young player too, so there's a lot you're asking him to do. I think he's going to figure it out. I think he's great. I think those missed tackles will start to reduce once he kind of gets in comfortable with the million things that Staley's asking him to do, because this is a complex defense. And I think what you're seeing is guys are starting to familiarize themselves with it and lock in on what they're supposed to do. Another guy who had a tremendous game was Michael Davis. 3 pass deflections, 7 total tackles. Another guy who's becoming an all-star in this type of defense. I love it.
What do you think about the Derwin James boomstick?
I was up, and when it first happened, I was on my feet. I call those woo hits, and I was wooing. I was super pumped, and then I saw it slow down. I saw him wobbly. I'm okay with the concussion protocol. I'm not so. I don't really understand the ejection. I get that he was taunting the play before, and the rule for ejection is a combo of foul words being said and what is it? Dangerous types of hits. So it's like a 1-2 punch right after each other. I like the concussion protocol. He was wobbly. Get him off the field. Don't let him play anymore because of just the concussion part. But as far as the illegal hit stuff, if that's what we're calling a legal hit, that's fine. But then we got to be consistent, because I see guys get hit like this all the time. Nothing called, not even a flag. So if this is what the NFL wants to be deemed as a necessary roughness, hits that are not safe for players, defenders, or offensive players, then that's fine. But you got to be consistent, and I have not seen the consistency in that play being called. Yes, it was violent, but not everything violent is illegal. I thought the dangerous part was that he got lit up. So I'm okay with it if they can continue to call that every time. But from what I've seen, it was a kind of a targeted call, I think, to make this game more competitive than it should have been. And I mean, it was only 10-3 at halftime. I thought it should have been a blowout before. We were kind of building momentum. That kind of really drained us. But so that's kind of my thoughts on it. If they want to call it that, just be consistent with it.
Well, the fault of that play was actually Nick Foles. Nick Foles
Yeah, you should
throwing
never
that.
thrown that.
Yeah, and I love Brandon Staley in the press conference. He was like, "That's their fault, not ours." But it totally was. If you don't want players to get lit up, don't put them in situations to get lit up.
Yeah.
Like I said something about I forgot what exactly I said. I said if you don't want to get hit by a truck, don't push somebody in front of a truck.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what ended up happening. Like he got lit up because Nick Foles just left him out to dry. Like you can't throw that ball. And
No.
then you can't get mad at the player when the player makes the play, right? Granted, his
Right.
head was down. Derwin James' head was down. He might have been leading with his shoulder. It wasn't helmet-to-helmet contact initially. No. Some of those boom plays, it's going to happen, right? But I don't feel like it was intentional. I think Derwin James is just being Derwin James, and that's what he does. He lays people out. He reminds me of Thad Castle.
That was a hit. I mean, and I'm just thankful that both guys got to walk away from it. I think that's the biggest thing. And it's not something I think we need to talk much about because either way, Derwin wasn't going to play the rest of that game because he got himself a little minor concussion. Now, hopefully that is just a minor concussion. He's no longer showing symptoms and he could play again this week because we need him to build up that game endurance. But yeah, I thought it was just a violent hit in a violent sport. I always call it, when they call unnecessary roughness, I always jokingly just call it unnecessary football on the football player, like kind of what you're talking about. If you don't want football players to play football, well then let's all go play soccer or something that's not as physical all the time. So that's kind of how
flag
I see
football.
it.
It's tackle football.
It's not flag football. No. And now, yeah. All right. We're going to play flag football in the Pro Bowl. So just wait. If you want flag football, wait until in a couple weeks. We're going to get it for you. Right now we're playing tackle football, and this is, and guys, what was that? The energy was there. We had a playoff focus, right? This was a playoff game for us, and we came out with that focus. They weren't ready for it. That's not our fault.
Yeah, the Chargers did have 3 interceptions. Michael Davis was kind of a give me. Derwin James and Asante Samuels, those were playmakers. Derwin James undercutting.
Don't say the Michael Davis was a gimme. It was a horrible throw, but Michael Davis had cover 2. He was deep, and he came off of that. He read it perfectly. So I'm still.
He read it perfectly. Play. It was a misthrown ball. Ultimately, what came down to. And
I got you.
He closed on it. He was in cover 3. He was in his deep third part of the field, and he was so deep, and that ball was thrown so far away that it was a gimme, right? It wasn't like close coverage making an outstanding play the way Asante Samuels was, right? Sure. Asante Samuel was awesome because he was in cover 2 and he broke back and intercepted the ball on a crosser coming back the opposite way, which was just phenomenal football intelligence. Derwin James on that out route. I mean, Nick Foles had a really rough game.
Nick Foles needs to be done. This is a career backup. I can't believe that this guy won a Super Bowl. But I guess that's what, when you have an elite defense, I guess you can get away with mediocre quarterback play. And that's what Nick Foles is at this point. And not even mediocre. He was just bad. He made some horrible throws. And so
he was under pressure a lot too. 23 total pressures. He was sacked 3 times. Who all sacked him? Let's see. It was
7 times.
Oh, he was sacked 7 times. You're right. Morgan Fox got 2. Kenneth Murray got 1. Chris Rump got 1. Drew Tranquil got 1. Kyle Van Noy. And Khalil Mack. So I think that's the most sacks the Chargers have had in a single game in forever. This game, so many players made so much money this offseason just for the number of sacks that the Chargers ended up adding to their total for the year.
Yeah, it was a sack party. And some of those were just really bad, bad ones on Nick. Like get out of the pocket, throw it away. And he did not want to be there. You kind of have to you almost feel sorry for him, but he gets paid millions of dollars. So you know what? I would get sacked 7 times for millions of dollars. So,
and then the last player I want to talk about, you touched on him a little bit, Kenneth Murray. Kenneth Murray was all over the field making huge plays. Had his probably best game of the year. He ended up having 4 stops, stops being plays that result in a negative play for the offense. That the Chargers' run defense came alive. Granted, this is not against Jonathan Taylor. It's against Zach Moss. But, man, Kenneth Murray, this season, it's his only PFF graded high game this season, that in Miami. So he's coming in at the end of the season playing much better than he was at the start of the season. I think he's played well overall, but this was like a game that really built some confidence for him. How many tackles did he had? 6 tackles against Miami, and then he had 5 tackles against Tennessee. And then, he was just all over the field. So, like, he's coming in at the right time. In the event Drew Tranquill's not back, how comfortable are you with Kenneth Murray kind of taking over that role?
Well, it's one of those things. I think he can get it eventually. I think he's a great player. He's just not the coverage guy or the blitzer that Drew is. And so I think as in a traditional off-the-ball linebacker sense, not so much like the traditional things, stopping the run, just a run stopper, I'm okay with. It's the other things, the coverage he's lacking, and he's not the versatile blitzer that Drew Tranquill is. Now, I hope he can get there. I just haven't seen it. He hasn't been asked a lot to do it a lot because you have Drew Tranquill to lean on. And because of those reasons, because he's still learning, because he's still growing, I think you absolutely need to bring Drew Tranquill back because then you have a blaring hole in that middle of the defense, which just adds a lot of pressure to everybody else. And they already in this defense, everybody has so much asked of them. I don't think you can ask them to overcome an insufficient piece of the puzzle. And I think it would be an insufficient piece if you let Tranquill go at this point.
Any closing remarks on this Chargers Colts game?
I just think the one thing I wanted to say, thank goodness that this defense is playing the way it is, because with the way this offense is struggling these last 3 weeks, we would not be a playoff team. But this defense has went from one of the worst units overall through these last 3 weeks during this winning streak, the best. Points per game, have allowed 31 total points over the last 3 years. They're the number 1 team in points per game over the last 3 games. The number 1 team on third down. The Colts didn't complete a single third down conversion, 0 for 10. So many failed third down conversions. They had to attempt 4 fourth down conversions just to, stay afloat in this game. But overall, those last 3 weeks, we have only given up 6 third down conversions out of 32 attempts. That's 21.4% conversion rate, the best in the league. And so you're not giving up a lot of points. You're stopping people on money downs. You're going to be in a lot of games with that, and we are going to be blowing teams out if this offense can do what it was doing at the beginning of the year, putting up 40-plus points.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to this Rams game. This Rams game was a Sunday night football game that ended up getting flexed out because the Rams are atrocious. Just because the Rams are atrocious doesn't mean that they do not have playmakers. They did lose Matthew Stafford to IR, Allen Robinson's on IR. Their wide receiver Cooper Kupp is on IR. Aaron Donald is doubtful for this game. Jordan Fuller's on IR. This team is really injured, which is probably why they're as bad as they are, especially because their offense really ran through Cooper Kupp. And when they lost Cooper Kupp, that's when their issues really started to happen, even before Matthew Stafford went out. And since Matthew Stafford has gone out, it's been Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield has played really well to the point where he's probably going to find himself a team to start for next season. He's completing 69% of his passes since joining the Rams. Could potentially be the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford if Matthew Stafford's not back next season. Matthew Stafford's been dealing with a lot of injuries throughout his career, but they seem to be really piling up over the last, 2 years.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years. I know he's got this like lingering shoulder injury. Baker Mayfield's come in and he may be playing himself into a starting role next season if the Rams decide that Matthew Stafford just is too unreliable with the injuries. And Baker's he's got something to play for. He's averaging just, 200 yards a game without any star wide receivers for them right now. Cooper Kupp's still leading the team in targets and yards with 812 and receptions.
Crazy.
And he's only played 9 games. So that tells you everything you need to know about the Rams right now is without Allen Robinson, without Cooper Kupp or Odell Beckham, this offense is totally, totally different. They've been leaning a lot more on the run game these last couple of weeks ever since this issue with Cam Akers seemed to have turned the corner. He's got 148 attempts for 559 yards, nothing special by any means. This offense is really what's dragging down this entire team.
Yeah, this is well, and we all know as Charger fans what it's like to not be at full strength. But this is kind of ridiculous. 16 guys for the Rams on IR. That is a squad and a half. You've got 11 people out there. That is a lot of guys not being able to play. And you're talking about your best offensive player in Cooper Kupp, probably one of your most important players on the roster at Matthew Stafford. Yeah, that's why when you have a really deep group, that's why you don't let people like Robert Woods go. Like I get that he was coming off an injury, but how they would love to have a guy like Robert Woods back. But now I'm looking at just the injury report. Chargers had 3 guys who were limited. The other 2 guys are full participants, and they got another 8 guys on their injury report, and most of them didn't play or were limited. So they are banged up right now. But that's why you build a really deep team. You hear it all the time. You got the next man up mentality, and that's what we're building here with the Chargers. That's kind of what the Rams have been on this dominant run that they've had over in the NFC West for the last couple of seasons. It's starting to pile up though, because you got old bodies. You don't have enough young replacements, enough guys to take over the reins, and they're in a kind of a scary position because who knows where this team's going to go next year. One of those guys on that injury report is Aaron Donald, who's nursing an ankle injury. He hasn't practiced yet this week.
Yeah, hasn't practiced this week. And you look at like injuries that they've had. David Edwards, their starting left guard, is on IR. Rob Havenstein lost like most of this season. Their left tackle, who was their left tackle before Ty Nishiki or whatever his name is? Was it Bobby Evans? No,
maybe.
It's
I'm
not
not
on
sure.
here. It's not on here right now, but I mean they're banged up. Brian Allen, their starting center, who's probably one of the better centers in the NFL, he hasn't practiced. Tyler Higbee was a limited participant. He's got an elbow injury. John Wolford, a backup quarterback, is on the injury report. How did that happen? Leonard Floyd and Greg Gangs also didn't practice. That's in addition to all the players that they have on IR. And I think you're starting to see the way that they decided to build their roster, not having those draft picks. It's kind of hurting their ability to build depth behind some of their star key players. They've always been a top-heavy team, and they've really relied on the health of having a top-heavy team, and this season it worked against them. For the Chargers, it's Austin Eckler, limited participant, Xander Horvath, Derwin James, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Trey Pipkins. Like you said, 2 of them were a full participant. That was Sebastian Joseph Day and Trey Pipkins. And then Austin Eckler, Xander Horvath, and Derwin James are limited participants. I wouldn't be surprised if DJ didn't play this game, just knowing Brandon Staley's conservativeness when it comes to injuries, especially with the concussion. So we'll see how that ends up playing out.
That and I don't even mind if we just have Joey take 2 full weeks of practice before putting him in the game on a limited snap count. Now I'd love to see him if he's healthy and he's good to go. Then I'm all for it. I mean, I was looking at the practice footage and he looked springy. He looked explosive. So if he's good to go, let him go. But I wouldn't even be surprised if we can see Joey not even suit up in this game because he's still not even activated officially yet. He's back at practice, but they haven't elevated him to the official roster yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 2 full weeks of practice just to get his legs underneath him before giving him game reps. But that is just, I think, something to think about. Don't get too excited for Joey Bosa until you see him suit up.
So he did practice like ESPN reported he returned to practice 3 days ago. And he reported, "I'm feeling better than I have in years." And that was on NBC Sports or Pro Football Talk. And they're saying that he's felt really, really good all week, the best he's felt in a long time. So we'll see how much he actually plays. I think that they are going to activate him. If for anything, just to have him on the field, right?
Sure.
To get a couple of those snaps. I don't expect him to play a whole lot because he tore his groin. Like, that's a pretty significant injury. And why are you going to bring him back that quickly, right?
Groin, and he had another, I want to say, like an abdomen surgery as well. He had a couple surgeries. It was something that, or maybe it was his back, something that he was dealing with for a while that he kind of just was ignoring. So that was part of the reason why it took him so long to get back. It was a couple of surgeries that he had.
So just trying to find his injury
His core.
history.
It was a core surgery.
So I'm going to look it up. I just wanted to get your thoughts while I'm looking this up. What are you most afraid of when it comes to this Rams team right now?
I think the scary thing here is they have nothing to lose, right? Their season's over. Now, I think this means something to them. This is going to be their Super Bowl. It's in home. It's the battle for LA. Yeah, they are the away team, but in their eyes, they bought the stadium. They are the only ones to hang a Super Bowl banner in there. They did it in SoFi itself. So I think there's a lot of pride on the line. And the fact that they are banged up, that they aren't being expected to win this game, that they're favored, that the Chargers are favored across the board, whether it's ESPN or Vegas metrics, like whatever you're looking at, Chargers are supposed to win this game. That is always the scariest football team. So I think you're going to see these Rams come out. On top of that, you got Sean McVay, who is a very, very good coach. I know Staley has learned a lot from him. I don't think he's on Sean McVay's level quite yet. Maybe he could get there. He's not there yet. And so all of that scares me. You also got guys like Cam Akers and Kyron Williams who are running the ball very well as of late. Behind
you know how much I love Kyron Williams.
Oh, Kyron's nice. And I mean, they got a nice 1-2 punch going on right now with number 3 and number 23. And I think, they have no expectations. And this is the last important game to them. They don't want what they deem, they probably look at us as, the younger brother, if not the young cousin. But they want to win this football game, and I think that's what scares me, is that they just have no expectations coming into it.
They have nothing to lose. They can't even like sink for draft pick because they don't own it. So
it's over.
So they have nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing to lose. And what I'm afraid of is they still have Bobby Wagner and Jalen Ramsey. Aaron Donald, probably doubtful to play, but they still have the best cornerback of the last 5 years and the best linebacker of the past 10 years. So they're still dangerous, right?
Yeah. They also have Nickelback. They have I just think it's such a funny name, but Kobe Durant is such a funny name to me. And he's been playing decent, but he's a rookie. I just think he has a funny name.
I mean, they have some players. They still have defensively. They have a lot of weapons. Leonard Floyd just came off a 10-sack season, right? Troy Hill was a Pro Bowler as a slot corner.
Yeah.
And he's playing outside right now. I think Kobe Durant's playing in the slot. Taylor Rapp and Nick Scott. Nick Scott's a rookie, but a really, really good rookie out of, I want to say, was it Penn State that he played at?
Who are you looking at?
Nick Scott.
Yeah,
he's their Penn State player who's drafted in 2019 the 7th round and has actually played really well. And they have a knack for finding safeties. I don't know what it is, but overall, this team is a lot more dangerous than people are going to give them credit for defensively. Offensively, I think they just lack the weapons right now. Their top 2 wide receivers are on IR, and they traded. Did they trade for Van? No, they drafted Van Jefferson. And then Tutu Atwell is a small 5'8", speedy guy, but hasn't really. He was a 3rd-round draft pick a couple seasons ago. They just lack talent on the offensive side of the ball to be any sort of a threat.
Yeah.
I'm really just
I think
looking
they went
to
out
see.
and they got.
They have Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and Brandon Powell as their starting wide receivers.
Yeah, right now. They had
thinking
traded
of,
for Allen Robinson, but he's also on IR.
Yeah, Allen Robinson was the guy I was thinking of.
Robinson.
And I really like their running backs. Cam Akers and Kyron Williams could be a formidable duo. And if they really lean on that run game, I don't think they have the offensive line to really open up those rushing lanes to be that much of a threat. But I think that they can churn out against a weak Chargers run defense. They can churn out yards there. I'm just not necessarily sure that they have the offensive line to really do it.
Well, and another thing I think might be interesting to take a look at, I think Alohi Gilman has been playing phenomenally in the absence of Derwin James. So if Derwin James is not going to go, watching that Tyler Higbee against Gilman matchup might be interesting as well, because Tyler Higbee is probably one of the best Rams ends that Sean McVay's had at his disposal. He's a legit player just coming into his prime. So another guy you got to watch out for.
Mike, I'm curious though, how many targets is Mike Williams going to get if Jalen Ramsey is lined up against him? That's not a matchup that goes into the Chargers.
Oh, I think I'm not throwing any if I don't have to. I don't like that matchup at all, and I think Jalen is having one of his. It's funny because you can't say one of his worst years, but it is one of his worst years, and he's still performing admirably, especially given the lack of superstars around him. But he's having a down year in his Hall of Fame pedigree type of the player that he is. He's having an off year, but still, I'm not testing it. It's something like you don't want to, you don't want to poke the bull. And that guy, he could be down 30 points and he's still going to be jabbing away. He is an ultra competitor. And so that's a matchup that I am avoiding like the plague until I have to go after it. Because you have other options right now with their depleted secondary. You got other guys. I think this might be a better, another potential Josh Palmer breakout game. Just because I don't think they have a whole lot of depth at the cornerback position.
They don't. Jalen Ramsey is still PFF's 5th highest graded corner this season, but he's given up 7 touchdowns, right? So while he's been limiting stuff in front of him, he's allowing a reception on 64% of his targets. He is letting touchdowns get behind him at 7. That's nobody in the top 20 has anything close to that.
Well, yeah, it's one of those like boom or bust type of players, right? He's either knocking it to the turf, intercepting it, or giving up a touchdown at this point. It'll be interesting. This will be one of those. Yeah, this is not going to be a relaxing Sunday, I don't think. This is going to be I think it's going to be an ugly football game with the way our offense is playing, with the way that this defense has known to be. The potential that this defense has and the fact that they haven't played up to it yet, that's all scary. Joe Lombardi should be getting his best playbook out and get it going now so we can build some momentum towards the playoffs. I'm so sick of waiting till the second quarter to run a rollout. Get Justin Herbert out of the pocket, alleviate the pressure off of him, his receivers, and that struggling offensive line. And let's put some points up. I need to see at least 35 points in this game.
This is an important game to start getting fixing the issues that we have, right? Our red zone offense been terrible. We got to figure it out
right now.
Yeah, so I think this is an important game to start really fixing issues before we get to the playoffs and games start to matter again. So, any closing remarks? This is the last home game, last game I'll be going to this season because I'm probably not going to be able to afford any playoff tickets if the Chargers do end up even getting one. So,
all
last
I'll say
home
is,
game.
Enjoy it, Charger fans. Show up. Let's get Thunder Alley rocking. And save all the fighting and the infighting for Rams fans. It's not a thing we like to participate in. Watch all the Rams fans get drunk and fight themselves. Let's get a dub. Let's get healthy, and let's build some momentum for this playoff run that's about to happen. I'm excited.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Over and out.